So now I'm going to be handing things over to our presenters today, who will be covering from inquiry to accreditation. We have Gretchen Block, CQL's Director of Partner Engagement, and Elizabeth Seitz, CQL's Director of Organizational Excellence. So they'll take it away. Gretchen, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Seth.
Thanks, Seth. So welcome to our topic today, which, as Seth said, is from inquiry to accreditation. Now, my colleague Gretchen Block and I are really excited to be discussing this topic today. We'll share the details of the accreditation process from when a potential partner first reaches out to when the detailed planning for the visit begins with the assigned CQL staff. So always, though, we like to start by sharing our vision and our mission. At CQL, our mission is that we are dedicated to the definition, measurement, and improvement of personal quality of life. Our vision is a world of dignity, opportunity, and community for all people. Right now, CQL partners with more than 420 organizations that have achieved CQL accreditation. That includes partners over 25 states in the United States, including the Tennessee IDD system, all North Dakota and South Dakota provider organizations, partners in Canada, as well as partners in Ireland. Now, there are many benefits to accreditation with CQL, 12 of which are listed here. Most importantly, though, is the impact that improved services have on people receiving supports. The basic assurances provide a structure for developing systems and practices within an organization. This structure can help keep providers accountable to continuous quality improvement. The personal outcomes keep us all accountable to people receiving services. Both the POM and the basic assurances can provide data and information for strategic planning, which in turn can and should have a positive impact on the workforce. Now, last, accreditation with CQL provides external validation of the strengths of the organization, as well as the opportunities that exist to keep getting better and better. Now, join us on April 30th for a webinar that we have lined up called the CQL Accreditation Difference, where we'll talk about these things as well as other things that make CQL different from other accrediting bodies. So now I'm going to turn it over to Gretchen Block, our Director of Partner Engagement, to start our journey through this process. Gretchen?
Thanks, Elizabeth. Hi, everyone. All right, so you're going to see on this slide a couple of ways to get in touch with us, and you are welcome to use either or both. The link that you see will take you to our website where you can complete an inquiry, submit a little bit of information about your organization and your contact information, and we will reach out to you. Maybe an even quicker way to get in touch, feel free to email me directly at gblock@thecouncil.org. I'm happy to chat with you at any time. So on the next slide, we're going to start talking about the process, starting with that inquiry. And before I get into that, I just want to mention that everything we're sharing today is our typical process. At times, there could be little variations depending on many factors, and we are absolutely happy to talk with you anytime about any questions or requests that you have. This webinar is going to give you a great introduction to CQL and accreditation, but it certainly doesn't take the place of connecting with us personally to discuss your unique organization and situation. So after you submit an inquiry or send me an email, I'm going to reach back out and we're going to set up a time to chat. We can talk on the phone, we can set up a video chat, whatever works best for you. And I'm going to want to get to know you. We're going to talk about the services that you offer or intend to offer, how many people you're currently supporting, The geography of your services is certainly something important to know. How centrally located are your services? Are they quite spread out, maybe across the state or province? Do you have, for example, a specific deadline in mind that you need to get accredited? And then we're going to get into more about who CQL is, and if you're new to a partnership with CQL, the two different types of accreditation that you could be eligible for. So CQL is a nonprofit organization committed to a world of dignity, opportunity, and community for all people. The vast majority of our team members either have previously worked as providers in various capacities. Many of us have been DSPs and frontline managers. Some of our team members have served on quality teams or have been trainers or even executive leadership positions. We also have quite a few part-time staff that are still working as providers while working for us as well. I think that gives CQL a really good sense and perspective of what organizations do, and that is certainly invaluable. Many of our team members also have specific experience and training in key areas, such as employment supports and mental health disabilities, substance use disorders, early intervention, and even more. So I want to get into the two different accreditation types that organizations, again, new to a partnership with CQL, would be looking at. First of all, we have something called systems accreditation. This is a one-year accreditation term. We're focusing on something called the basic assurances. So the basic assurances are 10 areas that are very foundational to the work that organizations either intend to do or are already doing. We're looking at things like health supports and safety, abuse prevention, rights protection. We're going to look at things related to your staff, recruitment, retention, onboarding, ongoing training. We'll spend time looking at business and administrative functions, fiscal practices, and we certainly want to talk about your services and, are they person-centered? Are they person-directed? So what happens during systems accreditation, and again, that's a one-year accreditation term, we're going to work with you one-on-one to help you establish a solid foundation of good systems. That's going to be things like policies and your plans that will lead to quality practices once you start services. Now, if you're already providing services and you want to partner with CQL for accreditation for the first time, you would be eligible for something called Quality Assurances Accreditation. This is a 3-year accreditation term, also focusing on the basic assurances. We're going to spend time not only on your systems, things like your policies and your plans, but also how you carry that out in practice. We're going to look at those key policies and plans and then spend time with you in person, observing services, speaking with people from your organization to determine how effectively those policies are carried out. Now, for both types of accreditation, you will be completing a self-assessment of your services, and that's going to be centered around the basic assurances. That process really gives us a lot of valuable information about where you are as a provider in those areas, where your strengths lie, and also where there's opportunities that we can support you with, provide you with guidance, resources. We require full transparency to make sure that we can do our best work to support you and offer you recommendations. And this also helps us validate the work you're doing. And we're going to encourage you to celebrate the great things that are happening at your organization as well. Now, for systems accreditation, the one-year accreditation, that process is completely virtual. Typically, after an organization submits an application and we get started, it usually takes a provider about 3 to 6 months to complete the process from start to finish. And for quality assurances accreditation, again, the 3-year accreditation term, you're already providing services if you're scheduled for this type of accreditation. We're going to want to have at least one of our team members come out and spend time with you. So this type of accreditation will likely involve travel costs in addition to visit fees. We're going to complete a variety of activities with you when we're out with you, one-on-one interviews, group conversations. We're going to want to visit locations where you're providing services. And we always do a very comprehensive review and have a conversation with you about each of the 10 basic assurances that you've completed that self-assessment on. Now, pricing for the different types of accreditations, there's several factors at play. And now for systems accreditation, that is going to be the same price for the 1-year accreditation for any provider we're partnering with. And you can find those costs online on our website, or you can reach out to me directly and we can talk about that. Now, for quality assurances accreditation, we take several things into consideration when determining cost. We're going to take a look at the number of people you support, the services you're offering, and back to geography that I mentioned earlier. If an organization is quite large, that could play a role in pricing as well. Now, we do accept credit cards. That's probably the quickest way to get the process rolling. And if you'd like to pay via ACH to avoid credit card fees, we can give you the information to do that as well. Credit card fees are not applied to your visit costs. Those fees go right to the credit card companies. So if everything goes well during the initial visits, and when I say that, when I talk to providers about this, I'm talking about organizations that have taken advantage of all of the resources we provide for you, manuals, webinars, and other things. You take advantage of the planning conversations that we want to schedule with you. You've met deadlines. You've been fully transparent. Organizations that are successful and our team awards accreditation. For quality assurances accreditation, that accreditation term typically then starts the last day of the initial visit that we have with you and goes for 3 years. With systems accreditation, once you schedule your final meeting with the person that you are working one-on-one with, at that point, if they award accreditation, it will be effective the day of that final meeting. We will, after the initial conversation that I have with a provider that's interested in getting accredited with us, after that happens, then I'm going to send you an email. And that email that you get is going to have a lot of additional information, links to things that will help you get to know CQL even better, and the type of accreditation that you are eligible for. At that time, you're also going to get a link from me, and that will take you directly to the application for accreditation. We call it our request for engagement. All right, let's talk a little bit about that application. When you get into that link, you'll see on the slide here, that's what the first page is going to look like. We're going to ask lots of questions about you, your organization, you know, obviously the typical things like name, address, time zone, things like that. We will ask you to identify someone as the accreditation contact. This person is the individual that CQL is going to most routinely be reaching out to, checking in with, emailing information throughout our partnership, and especially as we prepare for accreditation activities. So you'll want to make sure that the person that you identify to do that has the time available to do so. On the application, we're also going to ask for someone that can serve as the invoicing or billing contact. It's very important that we get those invoices to the right person so that accreditation activities can be scheduled or assigned. They can happen as scheduled, and that at the end of the process, we can get you the proof of accreditation that you need. Now, we also ask in the application, and this is particularly important for quality assurances accreditation, what your scheduling preference is. So you'll be able to choose from available months that we have, and then you'll also be able to indicate if you'd like to be considered for an earlier visit if we happen to have any cancellations. We recommend, and this is very important, I can't stress this enough, we recommend that you submit your application at least 6 to 9 months ahead of when you'd like your first visit with CQL for quality assurances accreditation. Getting that application well in advance, that's going to help ensure we have availability, and just as importantly, that you have the time you need to successfully prepare without feeling rushed. Also in that application, you're going to choose the type of accreditation that you would like to be scheduled for. So I just want to reiterate again, systems accreditation is a 1-year accreditation term. That is for providers that have not yet started services and intend to wait on starting services until you've made it through the process with CQL. Typically, that takes about 3 to 6 months. The other type of accreditation, quality assurances accreditation, that's the 3-year accreditation term for providers new to a partnership with CQL that are already providing services. Now, I do want to mention if we've got any partners with us today that have been through accreditation previously, maybe you've been through a cycle or 2 of quality assurances accreditation or perhaps other types of accreditation. Quality assurances accreditation is something that any provider is welcome to apply for more than once. Sometimes providers that have been with us for a cycle or 2 recognize that it's important to go through a cycle of quality assurances accreditation again to make sure you've got a solid foundation. All right. We're also going to ask on this application the various services that you offer, and this is important as well. CQL looks at all services that an organization offers that fall in our area of expertise, whether accreditation is required or not. So if you are from an area, a state, or a location where accreditation is required, perhaps it's only required for some of the services you offer. We're actually going to look at all of the services that you offer, again, that fall under our area of expertise. We're also going to ask on that application the number of people you support, and we're looking for an unduplicated number. So let's say that you've got people that you support, and maybe you provide multiple services for them, 2 or 3 different services. Please only count those individuals one time. We're also going to ask on the application, we're going to ask you to affirm that you are meeting licensing requirements, safety requirements, or if there are any concerns that have come up, that you're actively working on a plan to get back into compliance with those things. You're also going to see on the application that we ask for travel advice. What's the closest airport? What are some hotels that are close to services that you would recommend? That will, giving us that information is also going to help you kind of get a sense for what some of those travel costs might look like for you. One other item that is really important, when you are completing this application, you'll get to a certain point and you will be able to submit the initial fee. We call it an engagement fee. It's $2,500. You'll see that on the slide. That fee is non-refundable. So make sure you're not submitting that payment until and when you have decided you are 100% ready to partner with CQL and move forward with accreditation. All right, on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about scheduling, what comes next. So we've gotten your request for engagement. Again, that's the application for accreditation. We've gotten your $2,500 engagement fee. I will be notified that I can go in and review your application. If I have any follow-up questions, I'll reach out to the person you have listed on your application as the accreditation contact. If I don't have any questions, I'm going to pass your application along to our scheduler, and she will work on getting you on our calendar. And that's for, again, quality assurances accreditation. Now, if you've applied for systems accreditation, I will find one of our quality enhancement specialists that's available to work with you one-on-one, and we'll get that assignment going as well. For quality assurances accreditation, once you're assigned to a team from CQL, and that could actually be a team of 1, or it could be a team of 2, 3, 4, even 5 people. It really depends on the size of the organization. You're going to get a letter of engagement. That's going to come directly from me when it's ready. And when you get that letter of engagement from me, you'll also see in my email that I'm going to ask for a little bit of time on your schedule to have your first pre-planning meeting with me. That meeting doesn't take too long, 45 minutes, maybe an hour tops. And just so you know, typically we send out those letters of engagement and really start planning with you, generally not any earlier than 6 months before your visit is scheduled. Now, for systems accreditation, organizations can expect, we typically start the process with you within about a month of you submitting your request for engagement and your engagement fee. So in that time, in that first month, we will get one of our team members assigned to work with you, and you'll actually get an email from me with some resources. I'm going to send you some homework. You'll get our basic assurances manual and a link to a webinar series to get you started. So that letter of engagement that I mentioned, that talks about the cost of your accreditation. It's got, information about dates, the person from CQL that is leading your accreditation activities with you. There's just a lot of important information on that letter of engagement. So read through it closely and also pay close attention to any deadlines or due dates. You're going to see when payments are due. You're going to see a deadline for completing that basic assurances self-assessment that I mentioned earlier. So as well as there will be a spot on there for you to sign and then send that signed LOE back to us. So lots of important things in that letter of engagement. Read through it closely when you get it. Okay, then moving on, once all of that is locked in and we set up a time to have your quality assurances accreditation pre-planning meeting, we're going to get together and talk about quite a few things. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that we chat about during that pre-planning conversation to help you get started, to kind of make sure your questions are answered, you're feeling confident as you move into this process. During the conversation, we're going to talk about the dates of your visit. We want to make sure things are happening when everyone expects that they're happening. I will talk about the team that's been assigned to work with you, make sure that you have the name and email address of the person leading your quality assurances accreditation activities. We'll also talk about any changes in services or number of people you support or major events or issues that have come up since you submitted your application. Make sure that CQL is well aware of any changes or updates. Then we get into, during this pre-planning conversation, we get into a discussion about the resources that I will be sharing with you. You get lots of things from CQL that will help you prepare for your first visit with us. You're going to get a list of activities that will be scheduled, and we'll talk through what those activities are all about and what you can expect. You're going to get a checklist, a really handy checklist that talks about the different activities. It has a nice little section that talks about documents that we typically like to review as part of any accreditation visit, policies and other things. You're going to get, we've developed invitations that you can use as you identify people from your team that you want to be part of different activities and conversations. And again, we'll go through and talk in greater detail about those different activities, and you'll have plenty of opportunity to ask questions of me and you know, make sure everything is very clear. As far as next steps or last steps in the process, you will be hearing from me and other members of our team here after the visit. We take care of a lot of housekeeping items for you. Now, there are several things that CQL considers when we decide whether or not to award accreditation. Transparency is essential, so I cannot stress that enough. Commitment to our partnership, meeting deadlines and responsiveness, can't stress that enough. One thing I do want to mention, just to give a little bit of a shout out to an upcoming webinar we'll be hosting in September. If any red flags come up during an accreditation visit with you, and when we talk about red flags, we're talking about those things that would be considered egregious, something that could cause serious physical or emotional harm, for example, to someone that you support, you can be confident that the CQL team is going to let you know right away if they have any concerns or questions. There will be daily routine debriefs so that you are well aware of what's going on. And I do want to encourage you to attend that webinar in September. There will be a lot of great additional information about red flags in particular. But for any organization that is successful and accreditation has been awarded, you will be developing goals to work on. There's a second check-in visit that we will complete as part of your 3-year accreditation term. And one of the important things we do there is check in and see how you're doing with those goals. That will all get finalized. You will receive an invoice from our finance person to take care of payment. And then you get the celebratory email from our team. And that's going to give you proof of accreditation. You'll get a certificate and a letter from our CEO. I know some of you are coming from states where you are required to share that with others. We'll also send you a plaque that you can display. You're going to get some fabulous marketing materials, and we really encourage you to use those materials to share with people the achievement that you've made, that you have been accredited by CQL. So lots of goodies come your way. And the final thing I always tell providers, both myself as well as the team members from CQL that you are working with, we are available at any time. If you have questions, if you need something, if you need to clarify something, if any concerns come up. So keep my email handy. You'll get my phone number as well, of course. We are here for you. So this brings us to the point where I hand the torch over to whomever is working with you next. So I'm going to do that today and hand it over to Elizabeth. She's going to give you some great additional information on what you can expect after the pre-planning happens with me. All yours, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Gretchen. What a wonderful transition. We call this within CQL getting the green light from Gretchen. So as Gretchen stated, once the pre-planning has been completed with her team, her amazing team, she shares any information from the pre-planning as well as contact information with the assigned lead quality enhancement specialist, or QES. That person then likes to make contact right away with the organization. Oftentimes, within a couple weeks. However, there are many times when that QES might be engaged with another provider in an accreditation or away from work. Regardless, you should receive an introductory email from your lead within a few weeks after meeting with Gretchen and her team. It is important that you respond timely to this communication, as this is where dates and times for the first planning call is determined. Now, as Gretchen has stressed, I'm going to stress again, maintaining good, prompt communication between you and the lead QES is extremely important for the partnership to be successful. If you do not feel as a provider that at any time your assigned lead is working timely or maybe isn't being as responsive as you had hoped, please reach out to Gretchen just so she knows and that we can take care of anything on our end that we need to. This is a partnership, and so the communication, the good communication goes both ways. Now, once the planning call date is set, the QES may send a few additional documents, or they may wait until after that first planning call with them so as not to overwhelm you. There's a lot of information that you're getting from Gretchen. There's also going to be a lot of detailed information that you go over with your lead QES. So sometimes we don't send anything just not to overwhelm a provider. Okay? Sometimes the QES will wait to send things to the provider, after the planning call, but sometimes they will send something right away. And that might be, say, the template for the visit schedule, just so the provider can get an understanding of what that would look like or what that might look like for the week. Now, this wouldn't be the final schedule by any means, but just a sample in which to start thinking about what the visit could look like. Okay, so then we get into the planning call. And this planning call with the provider is set up by the lead QES and may include other team members from CQL, but it might not. The planning call is typically an hour to an hour and a half. And when you think about who should be there, we often say, think about who's going to be involved in the planning process, developing the schedule, gathering documentation, completing the self-assessment, who's going to be involved in in a thorough way during that week. Those are the people that should be there. Thing that we'll talk about is expectations. The lead QES will want to know what your expectations as a provider is for CQL and for that team. And we'll share our expectations with you, what we need from you to make this a successful partnership. Even though the lead has the RFE and has most likely already looked at your website if you have one, there may still be some questions that they have about your organization. They may ask more detailed questions about the types of services that you provide, because even though it may sound like a common service, it might look different from state to state or from country to country. So we like to understand what exactly that service entails. They may ask questions around your organizational structure, around the number of people that you support in those different services. And like Gretchen had spoken to, geographical spread. That will be important when we start talking about the schedule to know how much drive time there may be to do some of the visits we like to do. Okay. Now, remember too, sometimes there might be a lengthy time gap between when you filled out your RFE and the time of your planning call with the QES. Okay. So that is why we may also ask just for clarification on these things. The lead may also look to understand more about what your different services look like. And again, it's really important to understand that as we start to work collaboratively with you as a provider on the schedule. Gretchen spoke to the basic assurances self-assessment. On the planning call, we absolutely will spend time talking about this self-assessment. This is an area of discussion during that call. The QES will ask about your progress on the self-assessment and provide some guidance for completion. Some of that guidance may include, number one, be honest on your self-assessment. We do not expect to see yes answers in all areas because we know that's most likely not accurate. The QES may tell you to provide ample comments and supporting information. The more thorough your self-assessment is, the more comments and the more information that you provide, the more it helps us be prepared when we come to your visit, your accreditation visit. And it's okay to write that you want guidance in a particular area. This helps the CQL team plan on how to best support you. So if you're filling out your self-assessment and you're in the area of rights and you haven't done much maybe around the area of due process, it's okay to write right in that self-assessment that you would like some support and guidance in that area. That allows our team to prepare in advance of the best resources to share with you as a provider and how to structure the conversation during the week. The QES will, with the provider, establish a deadline for the completion of the self-assessment if that is any different than what is written on the LOE. Sometimes the lead QES and the provider will determine that a few more weeks is necessary for a good, thorough self-assessment, and that's okay. The QES will also answer any questions about the self-assessment that you might have as you're filling it out. Now, again, we cannot stress enough that thorough completion and timely submission of the self-assessment is one of the most critical pieces of the accreditation. The CQL team cannot start the accreditation without a completed, thorough basic assurances self-assessment in hand. If deadlines are not met, then the visit is at risk of being canceled and a fee charged to the provider for cancellation. So again, very, very important that the basic assurances self-assessment is completed, it's thorough, and it's submitted timely. So what we'll often recommend is for you as a provider, give yourself plenty of time to work on the self-assessment and work on it as a team. And then, of course, reach out to your lead QES if you have any questions. They are more than happy to help work through any problems or any concerns that you have while completing that assessment. Another big part of the planning call, probably the biggest part of the planning call, is starting to look at the visit schedule. During this initial planning call, the schedule is not final. Okay? You're just getting started putting the pieces together of the visit schedule. Okay? Sometimes the schedule isn't even finalized until a few weeks before the visit, and sometimes just a few days before the visit. So what you will start to discuss collaboratively with your lead QES include things like, number one, confirmation of the dates of the visit and address where CQL staff should be on that very first day. We like to have that determined right away. If there are multiple people on the CQL team, there will be a discussion about which of the team members are going to be on site. Maybe all of them will, maybe only one or two of them will be. And then if anyone from the CQL team will facilitate activities virtually. So you'll have a conversation about what that will look like. You'll talk about the best time to start each day. Now, our kind of basic generic template of the visit schedule, I think it says starting at 9 a.m., but it is completely up to the organization on what time works best for them. Some like to start earlier, some like to start the day a little bit later. You'll also talk about the opening presentation that very first day of the accreditation, what that might look like, who might be involved, and the amount of time needed on the schedule for that presentation. You'll talk about visits with people. One of the things that CQL loves to do is visit with people where they receive services. So on the schedule, there will be times that we'll want to block out to go visit with people, be it in day services, potentially at a place of employment, at their homes, be it homes that are operated by the provider or homes that people own, or if they live with families. So we like to do a lot of visits with people. So we'll need to start talking about locations, where those visits will be, time of the day. And that's one of the reasons we like to know more about the types of services you provide and the geographical spread. So travel times are important. They can eat up some time in the schedule. So we like to know what that's going to look like. Now, again, during that first planning call, nothing gets set in stone, but these are the things that the lead QES will start to talk about with you. Another important part of the schedule are personal outcome measures interviews. The lead QES will talk about the number of POM interviews that they expect to be done during the accreditation visit. They'll also talk about any specific criteria for people participating in those POM interviews. For example, depending on the type of services, the lead QES may want to meet with someone who has higher support, medical support needs. And then they'll talk about, and as again, collaboratively, the QES and the provider will determine whether any of those POM interviews could be done virtually prior to the accreditation visit, or whether they'll be placed on the schedule for that week of the accreditation. Another thing that you'll talk about are focus groups. We love to do lots of focus groups. Now, the number of those focus groups always depend on the size of the organization and, again, how many different service types are offered. So the lead QES will talk about the type. Typically, we always do a focus group with people receiving services. We will always do one with your direct support staff, as well as frontline supervisors if your organization has, say, that line in their structure of frontline supervisors. There may be other types of focus groups that together you determine that you want to have, which could be a focus group specific to service type. It could be a focus group for family members. If you do shared living, sometimes we've done focus groups specific to shared living providers. It just depends on what you and the QES come up with together so that our team really gets a really thorough, holistic view of the services that you provide. Within focus groups too, you'll talk about how many people to invite to each one. You'll talk about the best time of day to hold those groups, what's going to provide maximum participation, the location, and then, of course, the criteria. How will all services be represented? And then and really the last thing on the schedule is the factor groups. So those 10 basic assurances factor that Gretchen spoke of, who should be involved and what to expect with those groups. Now, again, cannot stress this enough. The schedule will absolutely change during the planning process and potentially even during the visit. But that's okay. CQL staff are flexible and they know what needs to get done in order to obtain the information necessary to validate that self-assessment. So we understand life is still happening. You're still providing services. Things are still going on. It's okay. We are very, very flexible with that schedule. The next thing on that planning call is documents. Among the items that Gretchen will send after the pre-planning with her is a preparation or a prep checklist document. That document outlines some types of documentation that the CQL team will request to see. Now, during the planning call, the CQL lead will begin to review this information with you. Now, the organization and CQL may choose not to go into full detail during that first planning call, and may just focus on the schedule and the self-assessment at this point because it can get overwhelming. But together, CQL and the provider should determine how documents are going to be shared prior to and during the visit. And if being shared electronically, who's going to be responsible for setting that up and sharing access, actually secured access. So this may come in the form of a Microsoft Teams channel, a Google Drive, or other shared drive, as long as it is secure. Some other logistics that may be discussed include if a hybrid approach to the review is taken, which activity should be in person and what can best be done virtually. CQL staff, may ask for airport or hotel guidance, even though that's in the RFE. Sometimes, if they're looking at travel costs, they may ask additional questions of the organization. And finally, during this planning call, at the end, a second planning call is typically scheduled before the visit, just to check in, to review progress, take another look at the schedule, answer any questions the provider has as it gets closer to that visit. Okay. So, and there could be as many as 4 planning calls. It really depends on the QES and the organization and what is needed as far as planning. But we do like to do another check-in with each other prior to the accreditation visit. Now, some important reminders for a successful accreditation experience include, number 1, schedule backup plans. You may put together a beautiful schedule, and then the person who said they'd agreed to the POM chooses not to. And that's okay. Have some backup plans, though, for if a key person cannot be involved, or someone you support changes their mind, or weather impacts the accreditation visit somehow. Complete and submit that basic assurances self-assessment in a timely manner. The document, again, is so important for the CQL team to understand who you are as an organization, your strengths, your successes, your struggles. Timely communication is key. Be responsive and stay in touch with your lead QES. This makes the planning process so much easier for everyone involved. And ultimately, failure to do any of these things really could result in the accreditation visit being canceled, with a cancellation fee being charged. And we don't want that. That's the last thing that we want. We try our hardest to ensure that the visit happens, and that we are here to support you however we can to make that a successful visit. Because remember, we're not here to make everyone's lives more difficult, but really to help organizations be successful and have a positive accreditation experience. One of the great things about accreditation with CQL really is that we see it as a partnership, and we work very hard to take a collaborative approach to the planning and to the accreditation visit itself. Now, I do have to share, we are very excited about this. We have just released a brand new resource, the CQL Accreditation FAQ. The topics in this FAQ cover accreditation tools, expectations, timelines, benefits, components, and more. We're posting a link in the chat box to the FAQ that is now on our website. This is just put on our website this week, so we hope that everyone takes a look if you have any additional questions. CQL also offers lots of resources that can be sent straight to you via email, and so we encourage you to sign up for these emails, as really lots of great information is shared this way. Also, follow us on all of our social media accounts, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and don't forget our e-community on Facebook, which is where you can share resources and connect to other accredited partners of CQL.